Well, welcome to April the 14th here at noon in Arkansas. The last step you take before you get to go into the promised land is right here in Arkansas. Today, today we are really fortunate to have a super lunch and learn with Nathan Carr, who is the senior program manager of the National Association of Home Builders, and of course, always Tony Woodard, the chief inspector for the state of Arkansas for the mechanical programs. We appreciate him so much, and all the folks over at the Department of Labor and Licensing. I hardly know where to start except to say we want to give a big thanks to Bobby Parks for introducing us to Nathan. Bobby's super involved in energy efficiency and probably does some of the best training that's available in the country. But Nathan, welcome to the Arkansas HVACR in terms of code enforcement and HVACR Association, your home, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Really looking forward to talking with everybody today.
Tony, you two probably ought to take the lead in this, and I'll just sit back and ask the occasional question. From your perspective, how would you like to get started, Tony?
Well, I think Nathan, the way he kind of summarized what he does, I think we'll let him jump off and do that. And he's already got the gist of the homeowners' concerns and contractors' concerns and builders' concerns and the uneasiness about A2L refrigerants. And I think we'll let him just kind of dive into that and tell them what the National Home Builders Association perspective on it is. And I think it's going to be a little bit smoother transition than everybody blew it up being, which happens all the time. But Nathan, welcome, and let you take the reign and run with it.
Thank you, sir. So my name is Nathan Carr. I'm a senior program manager in codes and standards over at NAHB. Primarily, I focus on energy code issues, but one of the other key areas I focus on is refrigerants, specifically A2Ls. I'm a member of the ASHRAE 15.2 subcommittee, which 15.2 is a life safety standard focused on refrigerant safety, and 15.2 is specifically for residential spaces. So we're really interested in, development of these standards and then how we can ensure safety and also a smooth construction process. So I've been tracking A2Ls. We've been, heavily involved on the advocacy side with the AIM Act and understanding what are the impacts going to be on home builders, on trade partners of HVAC contractors, and really trying to track what's going on. So we've, of course, reached out to all the major manufacturers to understand what their timeline looks like. Of course, January 1 of this year, they stopped making 410A equipment. We're now all, manufacturing A2L equipment. So that's been the transition. Now they're still working through their stock of 410 equipment, and then expecting by the end of this year, probably late summer to early fall will be entirely A2L equipment being installed in the field. So where I've been really trying to focus on is a couple different areas. One, how do builders prepare for this? Because the 410A coils don't always work with the 454B or R32 condensers. So, tracking that, helping our builder members understand how they have to prepare, what questions they need to be asking their HVAC contractors, distributors, and manufacturers that they work with. And then, the other side of this is preparing homeowners or giving at least home builders some of the information so that they can prepare their homeowners. Because, you hear the words lightly flammable and you don't always know what to take from that. How flammable is lightly flammable? How do we need to prepare for this? How are we going to ensure that every person purchasing a new home or going through a retrofit, getting updated equipment, has a safe, comfortable home? So that's some of the key areas I've been really diving into. And then sitting on these standard development committees. It's great. You get a lot of really smart people in the room, but one of the things that I love going out and doing is talking to groups like this, trying to get more information from people directly in the field to say, what are we missing? What are we doing wrong? What do we need to improve so that the standard's actually usable and valuable in the field?
What do we as an industry, HVACR industry, need to do to keep builders informed and make sure that we're both on the same page?
Absolutely. I mean, I think um, in a larger sense, I see at least so I worked as a builder, worked for builders, and then have transitioned to working for NHB. One of the things that I appreciated when I was a home builder was really trying to find not just a contractor, but a partner, somebody who's going to
Hmm.
help me understand the process and help me, stay on top of all of these changes. So, I remember it was the furnace fan change and that messed up supply. Then it was through COVID trying to understand when we were going to get equipment and what looked like it and what was going to be available. The key thing that I appreciated from my trade partners during that time was the ones who communicated, who let me know, here's what's going on, here's what we can expect for the next 6 months or a year, here's how we're going to transition this, and then that allowed me to make informed decisions, and it allowed me to really have a good confidence in what was going to go on. I didn't ever expect to have to be an expert in HVAC. That's why I had a good partner. But I did want to make sure that we could communicate and have the good back and forth.
Nathan, I'd like to just get your thoughts on. So you're strictly like 15.2, which, like you said, is geared more for residential. And some of the concern out there has been with the multifamily dwelling when we try to compact multiple line sets in one stud cavity. What's your thoughts on that?
So 15.2 is a little unique in that it's scoped to say we're going to cover single family, but then also multifamily dwelling units, specifically when you've got, an individual condenser serving a unit. So, I think we've all seen it. You see that farm of condensers sitting outside a building or sitting on a rooftop serving each of the individual coils inside. That's what 15.2 is geared towards as well. And so there's a couple issues around this. 15 and 15.2 have some key stipulations around chases and how to deal with them. My key thoughts in this is if we don't have chases, then we don't have to worry about the requirements. Running refrigerant in a stud cavity is not a chase. So we've got opportunities to reduce those burdens and try to make it easier to install. Now, when we're putting refrigerants line sets in walls, we have to think about nail protection. And this is where I think, 15.2 made the key decision, and there's some other, equipment standards, other safety standards out there. And I think they're all kind of coming around to this idea is that for the line set, if we run it, keep it protected, so have nail protection, have it, free from damage, and then we test it, make sure it's not leaking. If we do all of this, the likelihood of leaks and where those are going to happen are not actually in the line set. It's going to happen everywhere else. If you've got it outside at the condenser, inside in the coil, or at those connections, that's where we're likely going to see leaks. So it's kind of set up to say, as long as we protect the line set and make sure that it doesn't leak during construction, then we really only have to worry about the rest of the equipment. Does that answer your question? I think it's kind of tough. What we're seeing at the national stage is that there's going to be some changes likely to the IMC to better address what's going on with these chases. It's just very difficult. And unfortunately, the code world moves so slow well, it moves slow until it doesn't, is what I think of it as.
I had been informed was, in fact, the engineer it sent me an amendment that they voted on and accepted. They're putting it into 24 because we're past that, so it'll probably be in the 26 printing of it. And where there's A1 and then they actually created A2L, You know, you
Yeah.
had your A1 and B. They didn't have A2L, and I think they're trying to back up a little bit and recognize that to where is what's in 1109, and then you get over there. The line set protection's always been there to begin with.
Yep.
And keep
Yep.
that 1.5 inches the whole way, not just let it go up and lean up against the plywood or lean up against the decking. Keep that distance. And then on the other inside, have the nail guard protection proper. Then, you know, like you said, we test it. We should be fine. Our issue we look at is when they try to cram 5 or 6 in one stud cavity, you've weakened the top plate anyway, because that nail guard you're going to not structurally put that back. If we're making as ADL, we're making a strong recommendation, 1 line set per stud cavity, protect it, move on. No issue. Now, I get their proximity, they want to do it, but if you're going to start putting multiple in there, you make sure that you build that proper and got the space in there. But I do agree with you, and was informed that they are at Cleveland up there. They're in Tampa here pretty soon, but they're discussing this and trying to get that language in there.
Okay, let me prove my ignorance. What's the difference between a stud cavity and a chase? What makes one versus the other?
Chase is from you're communicating from point. So if you got 1, 2, 3 floors, you have belters, and you've got smoke protection or partition. Stud, it's wide open. That chase way will be wide open, point A to point B. So then we're doing the fire rating of it, as well as now we're going to do leak detection sensors, and we'd have to have grills top and bottom to evacuate that out if they since go off. So it's an open void area. That's the difference.
Yeah. And it creates issues. I focus a lot on the energy code. And one of the things we're looking at is, air tightness requirements under the energy code and blower door testing. And well, when you've got a chase and then you put vents in a chase and you have air move through it, and it makes it really hard to pass a blower door test. So, there's a lot of things in play in this. So it's, I agree everything with what Tony said. It's, chases are there. I don't know. I feel like a lot of this is just, it's not a thing until the code makes it a thing. And chases and all of their, requirements were brought around from a fire protection standpoint, because you basically have an open space up floors, and once you start traveling between floors, you can create a chimney for fires. That's right. And so they put different requirements on chases than stud cavities, because studs, you'll have your top and bottom plate, and that's going to stop a lot of any potential flame from moving quickly from floor to floor.
Okay, let me again go back to when we start talking about running multiple line sets in a stud cavity. You say it will meet code, but it's strongly recommended that you do not put but one in there. So if a contractor says he's in a situation that he really wants to run 2 line sets in 1 stud cavity, may he do that?
Technically per code, yes. But again, we're just giving you a real strong recommendation. Don't do that. Now, I mean, you could have this stud cavity, that stud cavity, and you're still going to be coming out in the proximity that you want to. If you're trying to put 2 condensers on this side of the house, one line set's going to the second floor, you're not that far apart. I don't, but yes, they, per the code now, until they change the language, yes, you could. Now, what IMC does state in there, and they're clear in 11, they're talking about now at the top plate, not the vertical studs when you're going and you're running horizontal this way, like plumbing, drain line. When you're going up through the top plate, that double top plate, they're wanting 4.5 inches for every 1/2 inch of refrigerant. They break it down in the commentary. That stud plate that's supposed to go all the way across, those little nail guard ones you see, that's not legal. That's going to go from stud cavity, vertical stud to stud, and that's a 4 inch, and it drops down to protect that. So you might get away with 2, but you'd be pushing the limit if you tried to put 3 in there.
So I don't really know how you can cut 2 or 3 holes that big in a top plate and it not totally destroy the top plate.
If you not been to Harbor Freight and see them on commercials, brother, you just go to town.
Nathan, if we're marching along here and we got another 10 or 15 minutes, but what one thing would you like to get across to heating and air conditioning contractors in Arkansas?
Oh, well, I'd say when it comes to working with your builders, try to be as open as you can. Talk about your problems, talk about how to have solutions to everything. I think my experience as a home builder and then the hundreds of home builders that I work with every week, they're looking for answers, they're looking for information. So if you can help them stay informed and help them understand how the construction environment is changing, whether that's from a regulatory standpoint or even just you know, a uh, a staffing standpoint, overall supply chain standpoint, keeping them more informed, I think is always going to be helpful. And then I think the
Mhm.
other key thing, um, advocate to your manufacturers and your distributors. Have you're buying their products, make sure that they're providing good training, that they're providing good installation instructions on all of this. That's one of the key things that I consistently want to see: better install instructions and a manufacturer that's there
Mhm.
to stand up and be a partner as well.
Nathan,
This is an area that is always a problem for a heat and air conditioning contractor on new construction, and that is the size of the return air opening. If I would make a request of you, it would be that you guys would really have an effort to inform all of the builders across the country what code says about the size of the return air opening.
Mhm.
Because nobody
Absolutely.
wants one. Nobody wants one. They're never pretty, you know. So it's
Oh
like
yeah.
an ugly stepsister there. Huh?
Yeah, I've been in that situation. I worked on the construction side for a small regional spec builder, and I was in the spot having a salesperson say, "Can we just get rid of that?" Like we'd run a return up in a kitchen island or try to put it, a centralized return, and they're like,
Uh-huh.
do we have to have this? Can we just get rid of it?" I'm like, no, and here's why. Um,
Nathan,
yeah.
Nathan, we did have a chat question. I'd like to read this, see if Nathan's thoughts on it. So it's from Aaron Bristol. It says, for multifamily dwelling units where mechanical closets are stacked on top, can the line sets be routed vertically within each mechanical closet outside of the wall stud cavity with approved fire stopping at each floor ceiling membrane penetration? What's your thoughts on that?
So I would say from a ASHRAE 15 and IMC perspective, this I'd say is likely allowed. Um, from a 15.2 and an IRC, well, this would still be IBC. Man, it's a big old maybe. The
I,
mechanical rooms and those
I'm
as
gonna
occupiable space is
I'm
what
gonna agree
complicates
with
the
you.
whole
Yeah.
piece. Yeah,
Uh, I'm going to agree with you for the simple fact that this is where the RDS or RLS, whatever they want to call their
yeah.
system now, is going to be located. Because if we're in the mechanical room, this is where they're actually located and they're sensing in the evaporator.
Hmm.
So I would, if it's a good proof, I would go out on a limb and say I think that would be an acceptable practice. So I
Yeah,
agree
and
with
I
you.
think that's one of the things they're trying to address in the next code cycle as well of um because 15 is set up to say, okay, you can have this many pounds of refrigerant per 100
Right.
square or 1,000 square feet. Same though with the IMC. 15.2 is a little different, and it just says this is the amount of refrigerant you can have in the entirety of the house. And so they come at this from two different sides of the equation, and you end up with different answers for both. But I would agree with Tony that that's where your sensing and your protection is going to be. So that's what makes the most sense to me.
Very good.
Well, I'm glad to see that I'm still lost. I'm accustomed to being in that land of not quite understood the question there, but I'm glad y'all did and y'all were able to answer it okay. So as we approach the last few minutes that we've got together, one of the things that really makes me want to emphasize is how do we establish that partnership between builders and our industry, because we're all on the same team. We all want the homeowner to be happy and comfortable with an affordable utility bill. Tony, we asked Nathan if you'd jump in and maybe address what you would suggest to contractors, and then maybe Nathan could address what he would say to builders.
I guess I would address to the contractors is, know your IRC. I'm not asking you to know the mechanical code or the IMC. Please know the IRC and the latest adopted version in the state, because we show up and they look at us with a deer in the headlight, and I have to show it to them. No, this is actually in the building code. This is your requirement as a builder on multiple things, especially with now with ductless being the wave of the world, and whether we want to use a cassette head or outside walls. And we are trying to reach out and build a learning instrument, whether it be Lunch and Learn or whether it be at the core, to get more of the builders and distributors, because we've got a distributor-based thing Tom has built. If we can get more of the distributors to help spread the word, we will help educate anybody, anytime, if they'll reach out to us.
Yeah. No, I think that's the key thing, knowing the code, knowing the equipment, and then knowing the steps that it's going to take to go from design to execution. I think every builder has their different perspective. Small custom builders operate differently than regional spec builders, which operate way differently than the big publics do. And they all kind of have their different processes and goals. So I'd say to the contractor, learn your builder, learn how they operate, and then learn, who you want to work with, and how they want to work. And that'll help you move through their processes and move through everything smoothly.
One last question for both of you. We have had in Arkansas over the last few years a big question over what size of a room requires a supply grill. And we understand that some ruling came down supposedly from ACA. I've not confirmed it, but they were saying in terms of like 600 BTUs would be where you would cross over and have to do it. And I don't know. I just know that's what I hear. What do y'all say is the size at which a supply grill must be placed in a room?
Tom?
Yes.
I'm strictly running by ACA Manual J for single family dwelling, ACA Manual N for commercial.
Yes, sir.
If I don't get more than 20 CFM, if I can't get to that point, I can't design a system by damper, by mechanical damper, by anything to treat that. Can't return it. So first off, you got to get your body in there.
Yes, sir.
So you got to get in and you got to get out.
Yes, sir.
We're going by ACA. We're going by the load. What does the load say? So now that's not going to get into that engineered like we had where they had in the center of the house 310 by 10 rooms. That's different.
Yeah, I would just second that. Follow what the Manual J says. The team at ACA works with a lot of experts to update these standards regularly and make sure that they work, and that the load calcs work. So, do a load calc and go from there.
Well, the report that I got was that basically by the time you run the math on it, if it needs 20 CFM, you got to have it. If it doesn't, you don't. Is that an accurate statement?
I think it depends on the room. Because I've seen some really small closets that small closet on an exterior wall with a window that the ACA manual said it only needed, 18 CFM or whatever. And it turned out, it needed every bit of that 18 CFM or it got really cold. And then I've seen others, it's an interior bathroom that, said it needed 20 CFM and it might not have. I think every situation is going to be a little different, but I always err on the side of caution. If my load calc is saying I have load there, then I'm going to, find a way to meet the load.
Follow up, Tony?
Yeah, the trick with this is the new world, the ductless heads, and
Yeah.
that's why Echo Manual D went back and there's that new calculation. They've got the full charts about the crossover grills. Or if you don't want to do that, then you're going to be cutting 3 inches off that door. They got some crazy
So
undercuts
true.
on the door. So
Well,
yeah, I mean, the ductless world is changing the dynamics for sure.
Nathan, we appreciate your time. We know you're busy, and the fact that you came and spent this time with Arkansas Contractors, we really appreciate it. You have any closing thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you all for inviting me. And again, if you're ever looking through ASHRAE 15.2 or any energy code or any of the other code issues and you see something that needs to be fixed, please reach out. Tom has my contact information. Please reach out. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, see how we can improve these codes and make them workable for everybody.
Tony, we appreciate your time every month. We don't ever want to get to the point that we take you for granted, and we don't, because we know how much we need you. Or as I travel the state, everyone is constantly saying how much they appreciate these lunch and learn sessions. They've been more successful than we ever dreamed possible. For each of you that have tuned in today, we're going to do our best to get this posted on video, and it'll be one day this week that it'll be up there. We will be back in session again next second Monday of the month, which will be, I believe, April the 12th. And May the 12th, a lot like May the 12th. And we'll see you then. Until then, have a great day.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you all.